So, I don't usually talk about my dreams, and I think that's a good rule. I don't usually have much of an interest in other people's dreams, and I try not to tell other people about my dreams just out of courtesy, because if I don't want to hear about yours, why should I force you to hear about mine? But I had a dream last night that I just feel compelled to share, so I'm going to break that rule. Because rules are made to be broken. That's how you live dangerously, right? So I had a dream last night that I was working at a donut shop, and the donut shop was owned by Donald Trump. Donald Trump was apparently a very hands-on donut shop owner, and he came in to the place where we were all at in the donut shop, and it was me and a bunch of the other employees, and we were sitting at like cafeteria tables, like the picnic style cafeteria tables that we had back in school. And he said to me, "Hey Steve, lunchtime, you're with me." So Donald Trump is inviting me to lunch. And I said, "No, that's okay. I don't want to have lunch with you." And Trump was like, "What?" He was very taken aback that I was refusing to have lunch with him. He says, "No, you're having lunch with me." And I said, "No, I don't want to have lunch with you." And I said something about how like I worked the overnight. I was here all day. I was here all night. I'm not going to be here for lunch. I'm leaving soon. And then he made some crack about how, yeah, I had been here all night, but I hadn't really been working, etc., etc. So I said, "Look, if you want me to stay later and work longer, I will, but make other lunch plans, because I'm not having lunch with you." And he was very embarrassed, and like the other workers were sort of, mulling and murmuring. And after he left, someone said, "Boy, he really smoked you," meaning Trump had smoked me. And the guy sitting next to him said, "He smoked him? No, he smoked him." And that's all I can remember of my dream. But I just thought it was nice that I had a dream that for some reason I found myself A, working for Donald Trump, and B, I refused to have lunch with Donald Trump when invited in front of the rest of the company. So I was very brave in my dream. And I'm just happy I got to share that with you. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. Welcome to everybody who's in the live chat right now, and all of you who are watching. Thanks for coming. And let's just get started with some questions from my Patreon patrons, because that's how I always like to start the show, with questions from the folks who are good enough to financially support my video making. So let's check out some questions from the Patreon patrons. And the first one is from Dave Edwards, who I have seen in the live chat at the moment. Hi, Dave. Dave says, "I've been dismayed by the number of remakes and sequels in recent years and have decided to go through some of the originals I missed going through years ago. This includes the Foundation series, Ender's Game, the Dune saga, Known Space, and even the 500-issue Cosmic Marvel series. Are there series you've gone through or revisited which you skipped or didn't complete in the past?" That's a good question. I haven't been reading any, like, as far as books or comic series, I haven't read anything current in a real long time. And I actually, in terms of comics, I haven't really been keeping up with much of anything lately. The only comics I've read in the last couple years have been the Star Trek run from IDW that is based on the Kelvinverse films. And those have been pretty good. I think that those are both finished now, though. I think they did a one volume that was just called Star Trek that wrapped up like 2 years ago, I think. That I'm still not all the way through. I'm still working my way through that. I'm reading the trade paperbacks, and then they did a sequel series to that started around the time that Star Trek Beyond came out in theaters, called Star Trek Go. Or Go Boldly, I think. Star Trek Go Boldly. And I haven't read any of that, but it was by the same writer and a different artist. But I haven't gotten to that one yet. But I intend to finish my way through that. But I haven't really been reading too many series, and I was never much of I never really read any of the book series. I never read any of the literary series, the ones that are really popular, the sagas or whatever. I've never really been into that. So I guess short answer is no, not really. I mean, I remember when the first Spider-Man movie came out back in 2002, I got into the original Stan Lee, Steve Ditko, and then later John Romita Spider-Man comics from the 60s and read about the first 5 or 6 years worth of those in the space of a couple of months and thought that those were fantastic. I mean, just absolutely. They're still some of my favorite superhero comics I've ever read. But other than that, you know, I haven't really, I can't think of anything where I dove in and then I mean, I guess you could count the Spider-Man thing because I didn't keep going. You know, I read the first 4 or 5 or 6 volumes of the big omnibus editions that Marvel Comics published, where it was all like in newsprint and it was like the size of a phone book, and there were like 10 or 12 issues in each volume. And eventually I just sort of put those down and stopped reading them, so I guess you could count that. Let's see what else we have here. This next one, another patron who is also in the chat, the one and only Tom McDonald, who says, I am, or rather will be on Friday when you read this one, Ask Away, 70 today. Can you say a nice thing? And maybe happy birthday, old pal of mine, for me today. I'd be ever so grateful. Not forgetting, of course, the will. Aha, yes. I will do you one better than that, Tom, my old friend. I know you're with us right now. You're in the live chat. So not only will I say happy birthday to you, but there's somebody else here who wants to say happy birthday. So will the mystery guest please sign in?
Hi, Tom. So I wanted to say happy birthday, and I also wanted to do something a little special because birthdays are very special times. And we should have these times to celebrate and have fellowship with our family. So I hope you don't mind, but I hope I don't embarrass you. But I'm going to sing happy birthday for you, Tom. Okay, here we go. I'm sorry. I apologize if I'm a little off key. I haven't sung for a while. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Tom. Happy birthday to you, and many more. I hope that was okay. Happy birthday, Tom.
Oh, that was really sweet. Thank you, Stuffy. There you go, Tom. Happy birthday from me and from Stuffy. I hope you have a good one, or you've had a good one, because it's mostly over by now anyway, isn't it? So yeah, happy birthday, Tom. My pleasure, and I'm sure it was Stuffy's pleasure as well.
It was my pleasure. Happy birthday, Tom.
Okay, good. Thank you, Stuffy. Let's see, what else do we have? Here's from Larry Yellingman, who is also in the chat. Hi, Larry. Do you remember that story about a woman furiously shitting in a Tim Hortons? Well, apparently that's a thing now. You seen this yet? Yeah, I seen it, and not only have I seen it, but I went ahead and put it in my web browser so I could share it with everybody. So yeah, this is the story that Larry linked in his comment. Headline, driver allegedly poops on man following road rage incident in Pennsylvania. Yep, and then there's, look at this lovely graphic with different labels for this pile of manure. And then, okay, a road rage incident in Pennsylvania allegedly, presumption of innocence, due process, very important, allegedly led to one man pooping on another, according to Lehigh Valley Live. Henry George Weaver, whose age was not disclosed, was arrested by police on Sunday morning after a road rage incident at approximately 8:45 a.m. somehow led to one of the parties being pooped on. I love that that is the term that SBNation.com has chosen. They're not saying defecated on, shat upon. He was pooped on. A short statement by police was issued explaining what happened. The accused and the victim got into a road rage argument, leading the accused to defecate, there you go, on the victim, Pennsylvania State Police said in a succinct news release. Bless the heart of the public relations person for the Pennsylvania State Police that had to write a press release explaining the road rage poop incident. Yeah, so apparently that's a thing now. Thanks for sharing, Larry. I'm sure we all appreciate that. It brightened all of our days. That's excellent. Next next question is from John Brockman, also in the chat. Hi, John. How long until U.S. imperialist capitalism collapses? Oh boy. How the fuck do I know? if Trump isn't successful in killing it himself by causing the entire rest of the world to rebel against us and topple our empire just out of sheer self-preservation on their part, I don't know. It might last for a while longer. Who knows? You know, one of the disappointing things, I guess, about the way some people have reacted to the Trump administration is they've basically said, well, we don't mind these sorts of things. We just don't want them done this way. You know, a lot of the things that Trump is doing, it's, well, we would be okay with it if it were done in a different way. We just don't care for his style, and that's a little disappointing. It would be you would hope that maybe more people can take this as a moment to say, you know, in many ways, even though he himself is a horrible human being in every conceivable way, a lot of his policies are the sorts of things that we have been doing, or that some of us have been trying to do for many, many years, and maybe we should just take a moment of reflection and look at this and go, you know, this is what happens. This is the result. This is what these sorts of policies yield. Men like this, behavior like this, a reputation in the world like we have now. This is what happens. This is the kind of thing we've been doing, and we sort of earn this, and we need to change how we behave. We need to change how we interact with the rest of the world. No. That's not how a lot of people are seeing it. They're more like, he's making us look bad, and now other countries don't, they're less eager to have us boss them around. We need to get back to the way it used to be, where they were happy to have us boss them around, or at least when they would sort of slink away and get out of our way and let us do whatever we wanted. That's disappointing. So I don't know. I don't know if U.S. imperialism is on the way out quite yet. If it is, it probably won't be due to anything that we do here. It'll be the rest of the world saying, "Oh God, you guys, enough," you know. But as I must always offer, I always offer a caveat when I make these sorts of pronouncements, especially about something as complicated as foreign policy and international politics. I have no idea what the hell I'm talking about, and I question why you would even ask me such a question, John. Okay, next question from patrons. It's another one from Larry. Oh boy. Okay. I ain't done yet. Here's my question for you, Steve. What the hell is happening to our world? And he has shared with us another delightful story. I bet this one has to do with public pooping too. It does! Australia's pooping jogger discovered to be high-level business executive. Some of you may have heard about this one when the story broke last week, or a little bit before that. This story is dated a week ago. But yeah, let me scroll past the incriminating picture. There you go. Andrew Douglas McIntosh was revealed as the mystery pooper this week after citizens ran a sting operation to catch the defecator in the act. They had to have a sting operation. They had to, we've got to trap him. We've got to catch him. Little did they know that McIntosh was a 64-year-old national quality manager at Avio, a corporation which manages retirement villages in Australia. The corporation announced Thursday that McIntosh tendered his resignation and is no longer with the company. Well, that's good. That's good. I like that. And they also ask about the photograph. There's a red light which goes on before the camera's flash goes off. And he saw that and looked at me as the photograph was taken. Then he just said, hello. At that point, I decided to just walk away. Okay. Well, to answer your question, Larry, what is happening to our world? I don't know. I mean, my real concern is for those people in Australia who have parents and grandparents living in those retirement villages that are managed or were formerly managed by this man. That's how many people were jumping on the phone when they saw that article in Australia. Is that where mom and dad are? Oh my God. That's my number one concern. Thanks for sharing, Larry. It's always nice. It's always nice that when you bring these little bits of news, so we can all yell at it. It's not just one man yelling at the news. It's everybody yelling at the news. I like that. You're bringing us together, and I appreciate that. Next is from Jason Tracy. What's your solution to the Fermi paradox? Okay, and for anyone who doesn't know, the Fermi paradox is pointing out that it doesn't make sense if statistically speaking there are thousands or even millions of potentially life-sustaining planets in our galaxy. Then odds are that at least a few of them, statistically speaking, would have come up, would have intelligent life and would have come up with technology able to send messages out into the cosmos, or perhaps even to travel to the stars. And given that, why is it that we haven't heard anything? We haven't received any visitors? Why, if there are so many aliens out there, why haven't we heard from them or seen them or whatever? And it's a good question. And actually, I don't know, my solution to the Fermi paradox is that space is big. Even within the confines of our own galaxy, space is enormous, and there are vast distances to travel, even if you're traveling at the speed of light on the end of a radio signal. And I just think probably if they are out there and they are transmitting, we just haven't been listening long enough to have caught them up. We don't often incorporate time into this equation. And if you figure we've only really had the technology to listen for these signals for what, 60, 70 years, 80 years maybe, depending on how you define it. And I mean, we've only been listening for a tiny, tiny sliver of the amount of time that we've existed. So I think we're just being a little impatient. I don't think we're at the point yet. I mean, if we've been listening for 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years nonstop, and we haven't heard anything, and we haven't seen anything that suggests the existence of another civilization out there among the stars, then maybe people could say, oh shit, you know, maybe we're the only ones. But we've only been at it for a few decades, and yeah, okay, we haven't heard anything or seen anything yet, but on the time scale of the universe, we just started listening. So it doesn't really worry me all that much. But yeah, that's my solution, is that we're just too impatient. Next, here's one from Some Random Geek, another one, another friend of mine who is in the chat. Hi, Some Random Geek. And these are a series of questions about movie reviewers. Hey, Steve, I kind of pretend to be a movie reviewer on my channel, Some Random Geek. Makes sense that your channel would be named that. So I would like to ask a few questions related to movie reviews. Here goes. And I'm just going to list these all at once, and then I'll come back and I'll answer it all as one big question. Okay, so what do you look for in movie reviews? What kind of information do you want the movie reviewer to convey? What do you think makes a good movie review and or a good movie reviewer? What do you feel are good qualifications for someone to be a good movie reviewer? What a great question. Okay. What kind of information do I want the movie reviewer to convey? You know, I don't necessarily look for specific plot information of the movie. I don't necessarily look for someone who's going to summarize the story for me. I look for, in a movie review and in a movie reviewer, number one, and it's similar to the same sorts of things that attract me to any kind of art or of commentary or of, you know, fiction. What is the person's point of view? What is the author's point of view? The author, in this case the movie reviewer, should have a specific point of view that is their own, that is their own honest opinion based on their own experience, their own life, their own outlook on the world, their own outlook on movies. That's number one. I need to be able to discern a specific, particular point of view in the reviewer. And after that, and if I find that point of view interesting or worth listening to, then whichever direction they want to take it is kind of up to them. In terms of what kind of information that I want to convey, I want to know what they thought about the movie and why. I took one of the best classes I ever took, and one of the best classes I ever took for my thinking as a critic was a music appreciation class I took in college. And early on in the course, we were at the point after a few classes where he was going to start giving us assignments where we were to review works of music. And he said, I know it's a little intimidating at first because you haven't really done this yet, and I know some of you might be, you know, a little insecure because you don't know terminology or you've never done this before. And all I want to tell you is the most important thing is to just be able to listen to the music, figure out what you think about it, what it made you think of, what it made you feel, what your reaction to it was, and then just write it down. Just describe it. And if you don't know particular words, That's okay. Just describe what the music was doing and what it made you think about, or what it made you feel, or what your reaction to it was. And that's how I approach movie reviewing as well. I've been at it long enough, and I've watched enough movies and read enough film criticism and analysis that I do have a pretty good vocabulary in terms of criticism and reviewing. But that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is watching a movie, thinking about it, and being able to articulate what your reaction to it is. Do you think it's a good movie? Do you think it's a bad movie? Why? What did it do that worked for you? What did it do that didn't work for you? Why? What's your reaction to it? What did it make you feel? Do you think it was making you feel the way the filmmakers wanted you to feel? Or were you feeling something contrary to what the filmmakers wanted you to feel? That sort of thing. I want your personal reaction articulated in an interesting way. And I think that's what makes a good reviewer. And what makes a good review, a personal, an informed, articulate, personal opinion of what the movie is, and whether it was any good or not, and what it made you feel, what it made you think, what your reaction to it was. Because that's all criticism is. It's a very subjective thing. There's no such thing as a good or a bad movie, objectively speaking. It's all a matter of opinion. And what sets a good reviewer apart from a bad reviewer, to me, is are their opinions well thought out, well articulated? Are they rooted in their own perspective and their own experience and their own viewpoints? Are they based on what seems to be a good understanding of film in general and of the movie they're reviewing? Those are really all you need. I mean, there's technical stuff. I don't care about spoilers personally. I don't get upset if someone spoils a movie for me, but I know lots of other people do. So just as a matter of etiquette, avoid spoilers without giving a spoiler warning first, but you know that already. But other than that, you know, just whatever your style is, whatever your focus is, as long as it's you and you're able to articulate it and you're able to make it interesting, and you know, being funny never hurts. That's the most important thing to me. That's the most important thing to me. Have a particular point of view that you are able to express in an articulate and interesting way that will allow me to understand what you think and feel about the movie and why you think and feel that way about it. That's the most important thing. And again, that goes for critics and for analysts of any kind of media or any kind of art, not just movie reviews. There are many different, you know, parts. There are many different areas of art where if you want to write about them and talk about them, it's all that's all that it really comes down to. You know, what do you think about this? What do you feel about this? And why? And your outlook will inform and enlarge the reactions and the outlooks of other people. That's the whole point of the whole thing. And I think, yeah, that was the last. That was the last of the patron questions. So I'm gonna talk to you folks in the live chat now for a few minutes. There are a lot of comment questions as well, so I'll get to those in a few minutes. But first, let's see what's going on in the old chat. Moisturizer Vlogs has a good point about film reviewers. Film reviewers are so sexist. They all gave the 2016 Ghostbusters shit reviews because of the female cast. You know, that's something else I was going to mention in my response to Some Random Geeks question. A lot of movie reviewers, especially on YouTube, are very glib and very superficial. And even people who you would think would know better, who you think would be capable of articulating a somewhat more nuanced reply or a more articulate review of a movie, they stay very surface level. And that's frustrating because, you know, the one I always think of is the guy, I forget his name, but the guy who does the How It Should Have Ended videos, like the main guy. There's a lot of people that do them now, but the main guy, the creator and the main writer, and he does a lot of the voices. He also does movie reviews where he'll just do a straight two-camera movie review as himself. And I haven't watched a lot of them. I watched a few of them just out of curiosity, and he's not that great of a critic. You know, he's not a very good movie critic, and one of the reasons is that his takes on the movies are usually from the few videos that I've seen, and it's been a while. Maybe he's improved, but very superficial, very just sort of like, oh, this was really good, I didn't like this, without going into reasons, without going into detail, without describing, without articulating. You know, oh, this action scene was really good. The one after it was a little boring, but then they had another one that was awesome. It was really badass, you know. And it's like the really superficial, like adolescent takes on movies. This was good. This sucked. And like, I need more, you know. And I feel like you can do more than just say, oh, I saw this movie. It was really great. I mean, when I do a movie review video, I try to to narrow it down. I try to think of sort of a theme of what I want the review to be about. You know, what's the main thing I took away from the movie? What was the main feeling I had from the movie, and how did it make me feel that way, and what factors in the film contributed to that feeling, so that it's sort of focused. Because, you know, my movie review videos are all unscripted, so they can ramble very easily. So I try to focus on a particular idea that I came away with from the movie, and kind of hang everything off of that. Makes my job as an editor a lot easier. There's a lot less fat to trim off. You know, oh God, why did I spend 5 minutes talking about that? Cut. But yeah. So that's another thing to mention. Oh, Jason Brené. Hi, Jason. Jason's here. One of the 15 or so Jasons that I am privileged to be friends with. Jason said, what do you want done with your remains when you die? I think, I don't know, I'll probably just ask to be cremated or something. I used to, before I fully accepted my atheism, I was a little skittish. I was a little weirded out about being cremated. I was like, oh, they'd burn you. There's nothing left of you. You're just dust. You're just ash. Whatever. Now I'm not really worried about it. I'm more worried about my death. What happens to me after my death is really not my concern. I'm worried about what happens up to that point. So no, cremation is fine with me. Oh, and Radical Bacon asked, movie music, John Williams or Hans Zimmer? That's a good question. They're so different. They're so different. John Williams just for the catalog, because I mean, God, Star Wars, Superman, Indiana Jones. I mean, Jesus, you know, like John Williams for the catalog. But Hans Zimmer, I think probably in the last 15 or 20 years, you'd have to say Zimmer has been way more influential. Like a lot of movie music now, especially for big tentpole blockbuster studio movies, it's definitely moved more in the direction of Zimmer's usual style than Williams. So you'd have to give it to Zimmer for influence. And there's something about Zimmer, a really good Zimmer score that can just get you. You know, it just really it gets you right in the heart, you know, like some of his cues for Inception are just fantastic, and the way they build and build and build. So I mean, emotionally, I don't know. I mean, it's tough to pick against John Williams for nostalgia and for that amazing resume he's built up of just these timeless themes. It's the best writer of hero themes. You have to say probably ever. Easily, John Williams, the best writer of hero themes ever. But I don't know. I might give it to Zimmer for personal preference, for like just emotional value. I might have to give it to Zimmer just by that much. Yeah, I know. I have to. Well, you know the thing about the Wonder Woman review is I haven't seen the movie yet, so I'll have to see the movie. and then I'll do a review. I'll do my extremely belated Wonder Woman review. And now, speaking of haven't seen it, yes, Leto, I haven't watched Legion yet, but it's good. No, but it's good that you ask every single time, because that's the thing. You have to keep on me about shit. I'm the kind of person that I'll either do something right away, like if someone says, hey, you should check out blah, 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 blah. I'll either do it right away, or I'll drag my feet and you have to jump on me about it. So I don't mind at all. Until I have watched Legion, please feel free to keep jumping on me about it. I have no problem at all. Now they're fighting. Okay, now Dr. Babylon says, watch Steven Universe before Legion. I feel like Leto told me to watch Legion before anybody told me to watch Steven Universe. So I think there's a pecking order there. So I have to respect that. I have to respect that. Oh, Larry Ellingman, I noticed this one further up in the chat. If you got arrested for drug possession, if you got arrested for drug possession, what drug would it be? Probably marijuana, not because I have ever had any, but that's the drug that people I would be likely to hang out with who would have drugs would have, and you know, it's probably that. But I've never possessed illegal drugs, like, ever. I've never had them. I've never used them. I'm completely clean as far as that goes. So I don't know what it. And there's really none that I'm interested in using. Like, I could say, well, I've always wanted to try, you know, whatever. So it'll probably be that one. I'm not interested in it. So there's nothing that I can foresee myself potentially having, you know, and then getting busted and what's this, you know. So no, probably pot, just because one of my fucking dope smoking friends would have some, and they would slip some into my pocket, just because, you know how potheads are. They're merry pranksters. I don't know. I have no idea. Aid Trance in the chat. Do you think the reason aliens haven't contacted us yet is because they think we're not ready, like the zoo hypothesis or the prime directive? Yeah, maybe. I mean, do you think we're ready? There may be, it's like the equivalent of Vulcans out there watching us going, no, nope, not touching that one, not getting involved with that. Cast Iron Chaos says, here's a Superman review you still need to do, the 1990 Superman animated series. Yeah, you know, I'm thinking about, because I have, for my Wednesday videos, I've been trying to do video essays on, you know, when I don't do like a Star Trek video, and I've been a little looser with those in terms of format. So I might do a video about Batman the animated series and about Superman the animated series if I can figure out a way in. You know, I wouldn't want it to just be like a straight review. I want it to be a little more personal and have a little bit of a twist to it or something. But yeah, Superman the animated series is a good one, and Batman the animated series is a good one. So yeah, congratulations, Some Random Geek. Some Random Geek said, I got high off of pot for the first time last month. Was that the first time you had smoked it? Or, I mean, had you been trying for years and you finally got high? Because, you know, I don't know. Terry James, do you still like Cinema Sins after the criticisms by Sean and Bob vids? I didn't watch either of those. I don't know what those criticisms are, but I haven't watched Cinema Sins for a couple years. I kind of just got tired of it. I mean, some of the ones I watched, I used to watch it a lot, and I used to think it was really funny, but I guess I just sort of moved away from it naturally. I just kind of got tired of it. Like, oh, okay, you know, go ahead. You know, so I don't know what their criticisms were. But yeah. Bruce Bartup, what is the role of nostalgia in U.S. politics? It's used mostly by conservatives, but sometimes by liberals and left-leaning Democrats as well, unfortunately, but mostly by conservatives, to convince people that everything is terrible now and things were better back then, so you should vote for us because we will make things the way they were back then. That's the role of nostalgia in politics, and that's why it's so dangerous and so toxic. Because you're selling people on a dream. You know, my history teacher in high school, one of the smartest people I've ever known, my history teacher told us, he defined nostalgia this way. He said, nostalgia is remembering things the way they never were. And I don't know if he thought that up himself or if he was quoting someone or got that from somewhere else, but he was the first person I heard describe nostalgia that way, and it stuck with me ever since. Nostalgia is remembering things the way they never were. And when you're a politician and you say, remember how great things were back then, and you paint this idealized picture of how things were back in the day, you put on the rose-colored glasses, you see everything through the gauzy filter of like, oh yeah, remember, and you're remembering, oh, you were younger, you were healthier, your parents were still alive, your grandparents were still alive, the whole world was stretching out before you, you had such optimism and you were filled with so much opportunity, and now look at you, everything's terrible now, and it's their fault. So vote for us and we'll restore the dream that you had back then. You know, the world shouldn't be this way, it should be the way it was back then. So it's Yeah, nostalgia can be a very, very, it's like a drug, you know, and it can be very potent, because who isn't vulnerable to that? We're all vulnerable to that. We're all, you know, susceptible to looking back and going, oh, the good old days, you know. It's only natural. We're linear mortal beings. We look back at better days in our lives and go, why can't it always be like that? And when politicians exploit that, that's a really powerful tactic. And unfortunately, it's often used by people who want to regress society, who want to undo social progress, which is usually a good thing. Social progress is a good thing, you know? We shouldn't want to roll back progress. We should want to push it forward. People who want to roll it back will say, yeah, but it was better before, though, wasn't it? It's too bad. By the way, I say this... I say this whenever I remember it, but for folks who are asking questions in the chat, when I go off and I answer a question, I'm not always looking at the chat. So if you asked a question further up in the chat and I missed it and I didn't answer it, and I don't answer it during the show, like, it's nothing personal. It's not that I think it was a bad question or I'm snubbing you for any reason. I just didn't see the question. So I apologize if people ask questions and I missed them. Bruce Bardup, is history a construct? Yeah, of course. Of course history is a construct. I mean, hopefully it's based on fact. It's based on the best information we can discover, and it's interpreted in a fair and rational way, and the things we have to guess at or estimate are at least done in a measured way, so that hopefully it's somewhat accurate, or it's as accurate as we can get it. But of course history is a construct. Leto says everything is a construct. Yeah. I mean, yeah, everything is a construct. Yeah, I might get caught for possession of nostalgia. And yes, Leto and Geek, I am ready and willing to be tutored on socialism. We can talk about that in the next Patreon hangout if you want. I'm looking forward to that. For those of you who didn't join us last time, I utterly failed to properly define socialism in the last Ask Away live stream. I ended up describing like sort of socialistic type government policies. That was more in line with sort of like a social democracy type of thing. But in defining socialism, I forgot to mention the bit about the workers owning the means of production, which I think is pretty important. That's pretty important to the whole socialism thing. But Leto and some random geek, I'm sure, will fill in any gaps that I may have had when we talk about it in our hangout. But yeah, I would definitely be up for that. Alex Woods, how do you feel about the glorification of the Confederacy and Firefly? Well, I didn't watch enough of Firefly to get that, so I don't know. I watched Firefly for like the first 5 or 6 episodes, maybe not even that. I didn't see it while it was on the air. I got it on DVD as a gift many years ago, and I thought, oh, this will be great, and I watched it, and I thought it was great, but I only watched like the first 3 or 4 episodes, and then I just never got back into it. It wasn't that I didn't like it. I did like it a lot. I just never got back into it. So, sorry. Oh, okay. So here, this. I'll answer this one, and then I'll go to answer some questions from the last. Okay, I'll answer this one, and I'll answer Dr. Babylon's question I just saw, and then I'll go back to answer some questions from comments on the last video. So, okay, the first is from Sven Gengel. Steve, given the fact that you were irritated that Trump brought up an incident that happened 200 years ago, do you feel the same way when people bring up slavery in American history? No, and I think that's a good question, and that's a good point, because it allows me to point out the difference. It would be inappropriate for people to bring up slavery now if conditions in the country were such that the legacy of slavery no longer shaped many people's lives, and that's not the case. People don't just bring up slavery to say, yeah, well, what about slavery? They bring it up as a way of tying it to the modern era, to say that slavery being a part of our heritage is reflected in the country that we see today. The United States has not yet completely, or in many cases has not even really begun to expunge that from its records. You know, the stain of slavery is still on our society today. It's not just something that happened 200 years ago. It's something that we are still dealing with the effects of today. So it's still relevant, even if institutionalized slavery no longer exists as such. Whereas what Trump was doing was he was not only inaccurately describing something that happened 200 years ago when he said to the Prime Minister of Canada, "Didn't you guys burn down the White House?" He was bringing it up in a modern context to explain something that he was doing right now when it's no longer relevant. The relations between the United States and what is now Canada, but was then British colonies back then in 1814 when the White House was burned, are completely irrelevant to the modern relationship between the United States and the nation of Canada as it exists today. Our relationship today is not really informed or influenced by the War of 1812. I'm sure it is in some ways, because history does reverberate. I'm sure there are some things we can point to if I really looked for that are traceable back to the War of 1812, but overall Canada is literally not the same country that it was back then. Canada as we know it today did not even exist back then, and the state of affairs between the United States and Great Britain and what we now today have as Canada is completely different. So it's a totally irrelevant reference. So I think it's different. It's a different thing to say to bring up slavery when commenting on problems that are still apparent and alive in American society versus bringing up the War of 1812 and the burning of the White House as an excuse for you know, putting tariffs on Canadian imports for national security reasons. And when the Prime Minister says national security, really, US and Canada, your excuse is, well, didn't you guys burn the White House? Like that, it's a totally different thing. It's already, it's almost all the way scrolled up, but I just saw it again. Dr. Babylon, when is my anti-SJW evil twin showing up? I don't know if my evil anti-SJW, the evil anti-SJW twin was an idea that me and Jason were, Jason Harding, were talking about for Opinionville that he might want to do. I don't know if he still wants to do that or not, but I would totally be up for it. And if that character appeared on Opinionville, I would probably have it appear on Stephen Stuffy as well. But I don't have any specific plans. I do have a plan for like a twin brother episode at some point, but I don't know if he'll be anti-SJW Steve. In fact, my concept for him is different than that. But we'll see. Maybe it'll be that guy and also anti-SJW Steve, and there'll be 3 of me. Won't that be great? Let me go. Let me step away from the live chat for a few minutes now and run through some of these questions from commenters on the last video, and then I'll come back and we'll do a lightning round to finish up. So first is from Chris Walker, an aggressive question. If in a teleporter accident you not only become immortal, but were also cloned as a heterosexual cisgender female with all your previous memories, would you A, be like Highlander and attempt to chop off your clone's head because there can be only one, either in a sword fight or like the option Hugh Jackman's character in The Prestige used of just shooting his clone in cold blood, whatever is the tool of your trade basically, inspired by TERFs. B, have sex with your clone like Rimmer from Red Dwarf in the episode Rimmer World. I don't know how Jordan Peterson could cope with such a scenario. C, like what happened in Star Trek The Next Generation episode Second Chances, directed by the actor who played Geordi LaForge, so I am guessing was inspired by identity politics. You just go your separate ways and live your own lives. Or D, you wake up because it was all a dream. LeVar Burton, by the way, the actor who played Geordi LaForge. I mean, we can't assume that my clone would want to have sex with me or that I would want to have sex with my clone. How self-absorbed do you people think I am? I might not be attractive as a woman. My cisgender female clone might be not a whole lot to look at from my perspective. I might see myself as a woman and go, no, it's just not for me. It doesn't do it for me. So I can't say that. You know, we can't assume that there would be even the possibility of a consensual relationship between us. It might not be amenable to either one of us. So I would say it would probably be the second chances thing. You know, she would go and have her life and I would have my life. And, you know, best of luck to her. That's what I would say. It's not really that aggressive of a question, I guess. Next, okay, here's one from John Brockman. Couldn't get enough of the patron questions, so I had to throw it into the comments as well. I see what you're doing, John. Think NRA TV will give Roseanne another show? I would be shocked if they haven't offered it already. I don't think she'll accept it. I think she's a little too big for that. I don't see her settling for a show on NRA TV. That would be really, really humbling. But I would be shocked if they or some similar right-wing outlet has not offered her. Corey Donaldson. Hi, Steve. Here's my question for your next Ask Away podcast. Which songs remind you of a beautiful spring afternoon? The songs that remind me of a beautiful spring afternoon are Butterfly by Screaming Trees, The Way I Feel by Gordon Lightfoot, Wildflowers by Mark Lanigan. Oh, Mark, that's a good... My wife introduced me to Mark Lanigan. He's really good. And Chelsea Girl by Simple Minds. That's a good question. There's a song, and I think I probably relate it to Springtime because Springtime was when the album came out, so it's when I first heard the song. But it's the song "Missed the Boat" by Modest Mouse. On there, they have Modest Mouse. Probably my favorite Modest Mouse album is their album "We Were Dead Before the Ship Even Sank," which came out in 2008, 2009, something like that. And it's just a beautiful album from start to finish. And "Miss the Boat" is my favorite song on that album, and it always makes me think of springtime when I hear it. So that would be my answer to that question. And let's see what else. Johnny the Wolf. Steve, you have previously expressed your appreciation of the JJ Trek movies, but are you not a little bothered by the fact that so far they have all been essentially remakes of The Wrath of Khan, by which I mean their plot all seem to boil down to a cartoon villain trying to get revenge on Starfleet and or Kirk or Spock, causing the death of someone dear to either Kirk or Spock in the process? Surely there is more to Star Trek, even in terms of action movie premises, which seems to be the only thing J.J. Abrams wants out of the franchise than just rehashing the same movie again and again. That's a really good point, and I agree with you, but I don't think J.J. is solely to blame for that. You're right that the J.J. Trek movies, the Kelvinverse movies, have really leaned into the action side of things. But that was a trend that was already underway. The Star Trek movies in general, I think, especially in the Next Generation era, really leaned into, okay, we're going to make these action movies. When First Contact came out and they said, let's do Die Hard in space, you know, and that was a big hit and everybody loved it and it made a lot of money for a Star Trek movie. I think they said, okay, that's it. We cracked the formula. That's what people want in a Star Trek movie. Save the thoughtful stuff and the philosophical stuff for the TV shows. And on the big screen, it's going to be action and adventure. And that's the way they went. And yeah, the JJ movies have really, you know, hit the gas on that. And now they're really off in that direction. But it wasn't something that J.J. Abrams brought to Star Trek. It was already like that, so I can't really blame him. But yeah, I would love to see a Star Trek movie that was, you know, that was cut from a different template. Sure, absolutely, that would be terrific. I mean, there's no reason why an action movie has to follow that particular formula. You could still make Star Trek an action, because I think honestly, as much as we talk about its philosophy and its ideals and its vision of the future, all of those trappings of Star Trek that make it so special to many of us and make us really you know, feel attached to it and love it, there's also a part of Star Trek that from the very beginning it was always about pulp action adventure. You know, Star Trek all the way back to the original show was an adventure series. It had ideas, it had opinions, it was thoughtful at its best, but it was always an action-adventure series. So I think that's in its bones just as much as political commentary and social commentary and being progressive and inclusive and optimistic. I think that's all in there together. So there's nothing anti-Trek about making an action movie in the Star Trek franchise. It's just, yeah, maybe try to find a different template, you know. I think Beyond, even though Beyond did have that same type of villain, I think Beyond was good because you saw more of the team. You saw the Enterprise crew as more of a family, defending each other, rescuing each other, working together. You know, that was really what elevated Star Trek Beyond up above the other two for me. And maybe some more stuff like that would be nice, you know, in the upcoming movies. We'll have to see. Ahoy Erno, the Screw Tape letters got me thinking of a few questions about charity that I'd like your take on. Is it ever possible to be truly selfless? How bad is it to feel good for doing a good thing? Does it even matter? Or is this the kind of pseudo-intellectual philosophy after bottoming a bottle of insert liquor of your choice? What's your favorite hard liquor? I like that. It followed a path, that question. I think that's one of those things that it's easy to get tied up in knots about. And I think if you go out of your way and you make a priority in your life to do things for other people, and you center other people in your life, I don't think you need to be too concerned about how good it makes you feel, or whether or not you're being truly selfless because it makes you feel good to help people, so therefore, you're not being 100% selfless. I mean, I think it's probably true that you can't be 100% selfless. It's just like you can't be objective. The nature of our existence is subjective. So we can't truly be objective about anything ever. And I think in the same way, because we always experience life as ourselves, nothing we do is ever truly selfless. There's always something in it for us, or we are involved in some way in everything we do, even if we're acting for the benefit of others. And I just don't think it's worth getting tied up in knots about that. You know, if you work toward the goal of helping other people, if you want to improve conditions for other people, if you're concerned about the thoughts and feelings and quality of life of other people, if you're willing to listen to other people and do, what other people need to be done, then I think that's good, and if you get some personal satisfaction out of it, as long as it doesn't lead you to make it all about you and not about them, as long as you maintain the focus on other people, I think you're doing fine. And it's not really worth beating yourself up or agonizing philosophically about, yes, but am I really doing it for them if I'm doing it also for myself? Like, I feel like that's one of those things that it's an interesting philosophical question, but it's not something that we should really allow, because that'll paralyze you. That's one of those things that just leads to paralysis. And I think it's best to just put that aside most of the time and focus on the work. And if the work is charitable and the work is giving and the work is for other people, then I think 9 times out of 10 you're on the right track. And what is my favorite hard liquor? Oh boy. The only one that I ever was able to come close to stomaching on a regular basis was Crown Royal. My dad drinks Crown Royal, or at least used to. I don't know if he still does or not. And Crown Royal was fairly palatable, was smooth and mixed well, like a Crown Royal and Crown and Coke or Crown and Ginger Ale. You could mix that and make it pretty good. So it's probably that. Probably a Crown Royal would be my guess. But I don't really drink much at all anymore. When I do drink alcohol, it's almost always a beer, and I haven't had a beer even for probably over a year. I almost never drink except when I'm in a social situation with other drinkers, and I'm not in that situation very much. So it's been a while since I had any kind of alcohol. I'm sort of on the wagon. Dr. Babylon. Oh, Dr. Babylon wrote me a book. Hi, Dr. Babylon. I know you're in the chat. Okay. Steve, during my time as a Republican, I was always more libertarian than conservative. I believed that the economy would just default to a free market and meritocracy sans government interference. I wildly underestimated the extent to which racial, sexual, and other kinds of discrimination still existed in America, and wildly overestimated the extent to which economic mobility still existed. I still believe that meritocracy can serve as a legitimate basis for economic inequality, but even if some people weren't unfairly privileged or handicapped by the economic position of their parents, I still wouldn't consider meritocracy an acceptable reason for people to get less than they need to survive. Participation trophies are insipid, but life is not a game. I've also come to recognize that the free market isn't self-sustaining and requires government intervention to protect consumer freedom from monopolies and cartels. In retrospect, a lot of the things I believed as a libertarian were both naive and inhumane, and I'm not sure how I ever believed them, or why so many other people, many of whom are smarter than me, still believe in them. What makes it worse is that I was an atheist and smug about it while I believed these things. What are your thoughts on this? Well, first of all, everybody is entitled to see the error of their ways and to change their mind and to grow and to mature. And I think that's what you are experiencing. I think your description of libertarianism, of right libertarianism, I should say, is spot on. That's how I see it too, and that's how other people I've known who were libertarians in the past or critique libertarianism see it as well. It is a very naive worldview. Speaking of, the last question about charity, it is a very self-centered worldview. It is, it's rationalized by this belief that, well, if everything was hands-off, then society would just sort of sort itself out. And we don't need to interfere in things or intervene in things or regulate things because, hey, people will just do what's best for them and everything will sort itself out. That's the philosophical justification for it. But the real root of it, I think, is selfishness and people just wanting to be left alone and wanting to be able to do what they want to do without being forced to consider the repercussions on other people. That's why I think that's why people cling to it so hard. They might not even realize that. They might not consciously think that, but I think they very often, a lot of libertarians, when they're defending it, will give away the game, maybe without even being conscious of it. They'll signal that that's really what they care about, being able to do what they want and be left alone by other people, and not being forced to consider the ramifications of their actions. Because they don't like that. They want to be free. They want to be free to do whatever they want. And I don't think that's a healthy position. I don't think that's a good position to have. I think you're better off having moved beyond it. But it's not like I don't get it. I get what's appealing about it. Especially if you believe, as you describe yourself as once believing, if you believe that the free market is this magical self-sustaining thing, if you believe that people are not affected by injustice and prejudice and oppression anymore, if you believe that that systemic racism or systemic forms of injustice and prejudice don't exist anymore or aren't significant factors anymore, if you truly believe that, and you think that this is a meritocracy and people go as high as they're willing to work to go or whatever, then I understand why that appeals to people, to say, why doesn't the government just back off? Why doesn't the government just let people do whatever they want? What about freedom? What about freedom of choice? I get why that's appealing if you come with that, if you preload that set of values and that set of assumptions. But I don't think those assumptions are borne out by reality. And I think that's the problem. I think once you take the blinders off and you look at reality as it is, and you see that systemic prejudice and injustice does still exist, and you see that there are definitely people who begin life with a huge head start on other people for no legitimate reason, just the circumstances of their birth, the color of their skin, their sexual orientation, their gender identity, their national origin, the religion that their parents raised them in, whatever, their economic status when they're born. All of these factors, ability or having a disability, all of these factors can push people ahead or hold people back. It has nothing to do with anything they've done. That's just where they started. That's just circumstances of where they started based on how society values or devalues certain things. And once you recognize that that is the case and that that's not fair, then, yeah, libertarianism seems really, really immoral and naive and just wrong. But getting through that is tough, especially if you're raised to view society in that way. Especially if you're raised in a country like the United States, where we have the myth of the self-made person. Where we've forgotten that pull yourself up by your own bootstraps is supposed to be a commentary on how impossible it is. You can't pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. People forgot what that even means. They say, well, people just need to hunker down and work hard, put their nose to the grindstone, pull themselves up by their own bootstraps. That phrase was created as a critique of that mentality. Well, poor people should just work harder and then they won't be poor anymore. They should pull themselves up by their own bootstraps. You can't pull yourself up by your bootstraps. That's the point. That's what the phrase means. So yeah, I sympathize. I honestly do. I sympathize. And but I also think you're better off having progressed beyond that. Okay, last question from the commentators, and then I'll go back to the chat and we'll do a lightning round. So get your lightning round questions ready. because we'll be going to the lightning round in a minute here. First, last question from Matt Machado. Hello, Steve. Oh, I'm sorry, it's not from Matt. It's from Misty, his dog. Hello, Steve. It's Misty, Matt's dog again. As you know, I'm a sweet old hound dog. I'm a skittish girl, but once I get to know you, I will always be your friend. Will you pet me? Oh, Misty, how can I say no to that? Of course, I will pet all dogs who wish to be petted. That is my reason for being. I told the story in a video a couple weeks ago. I saw the service animal in the grocery store. I had to restrain myself from going over and bothering that dog. When I see a dog in public, if I think that if it's a friendly dog and the dog wants to be petted, wants to be spoken to, wants to be interacted with, no force in the universe can stop me. I will pet the dog. So yes, Misty, I would love to. I would pet the shit out of a beautiful old hound dog. Let's go to the chat now and let's get ready for a little something that I like to call
the lightning round. Rapid fire questions, glib and adequate answers.
Yeah, what do you think of that shit, right? It's technology. Okay, so you know the rules. I'm going to start the timer. 5 minutes. Start asking questions in the chat, and for 5 minutes, I'll try to answer as many of them as I possibly can. Here we go. Okay. Alexa Richardson, what do you think of... Okay, one before that. Inertia. Steve, do you have anything to say about Ontario electing Trump North as provincial premier? Sorry, Canada. It's sorry to see that you have the same problems that we have. Terry James, Zeus or Jupiter? I gotta go Jupiter because Jupiter got a planet named after him. Let me see. This is a great one from some random geek. Picard or Cisco? Cisco. I think most people who know me would know that I would pick Cisco. Cisco is my favorite. Cisco is my favorite captain of all Star Trek captains. Joe McClory, do you spend any time before the live stream thinking on the answers for pre-submitted questions? Yes, sometimes I do. Sometimes I do. I did give some thought to some random geeks movie reviewer questions, and I also gave some thought to Corey's question about what song reminded me of spring, because when I first read that, I thought, how the fuck am I going to answer? I don't know what fucking song reminds me of fucking spring. What is he talking about? And then I thought, oh no, that Modest Mouse song reminds me of spring. So yes, sometimes I do think. The ones that had better answers this time were probably ones I gave a little bit of thought to. Radical Bacon, how glib and inadequate will the answer to this question be? Super. Super glib and super inadequate. Powell, in the last stream you described Shoe on Head in some pretty harsh terms. What in particular makes her so horrible in your eyes? I think I went over it then. I think she's a horrible rape apologist. And she's friends with shitty people, and she defends them and takes up for them and does their fucking water carrying for them. I think I went over that last week. Alf Benny, Ginger or Marianne? Marianne. Huh? See? Right off the top of my head. Zero credibility. Star Wars or Star Trek? Star Trek. Don't even have to think about it. Chris, any plans for a feature-length Steve and Stuffy? No. Although maybe. I don't have an idea in mind, but maybe. I'm not ruling it out. I just don't know what it would be about or how I would do it. But it's possible. Some random geeks, Cisco or Kirk? Cisco. Cisco's my favorite. Cisco before, above all. Christy Winters, are you watching the football? It's like the Mitchell and Webb sketch. Watch the football! No, I'm not watching the football. I'm not watching the World Cup. I don't like both sports that are called football. Our American football and what we call soccer, what the rest of the world calls football, I have no interest in whatsoever. So no, I'm not watching the football. Dr. Strangelove, our original series Kirk and movie Prime timeline Kirk different characters altogether? No, actually, I think movie Kirk and TV show Kirk are a lot closer to each other than TV show Picard and movie Picard are. I can see the line, the continuity between movie Kirk and TV Kirk. I think they're the same person. I think they're easily read as the same person. Joe McClory, can you think of any examples of parts of movies that you hate in movies that you otherwise like? Example, if everyone is special, no one is, bits in The Incredibles. I can't think. Oh shit, I can't think of any specific examples. But yeah, there are some. Trust me on this. I can't think of any right off the top of my head. I'm drawing a blank. But yes, there are. Malevolent divinity. Would you rather be able to fly and not walk, or walk but not fly? I'd rather be able to walk. If I've gotten this far without being able to fly, so I think I'm going to do okay. I'd rather be able to walk. Modest Mouse is the Beatles of our generation. Yes, you're right, Alf. I agree. Dinah Cat loves me. Niven or Pornell? I have no idea what that means. Alexia Richardson. Sorry, I did. I skipped you. I'm sorry, Alexia. What do you think of furry fandom? You skipped me at the start. I apologize. I'm not familiar with it. I have nothing against furries. I think if being a furry makes someone happy and it's something that they enjoy, it's not for me to tell them that there's anything wrong with them or that they shouldn't enjoy it. I think it's great. I'm not into it. I don't really know a lot about it. I've never been interested in it. But if people are furries and that's what they like and that gives them some joy, good for them. Like, I don't get why people shit on furries, or why people are mean to them or bully them or look down on them. Like, if that's what they like. If some fucking asshole can paint his face and go to a football game and yell and scream and that gives him pleasure, good for him. If somebody wants to be a furry, why do we tolerate one and not tolerate the other? I don't get it. So no problem with furries at all. Well, okay, and when I said Alexa, I triggered several people's fire tablets to bring up Alexa. So I apologize. You should set your Alexa so that it responds to computer, like the computer on the Enterprise. Okay, that's time for the lightning round, but I'll go ahead and go through a few more in the live chat before we wrap up, because this is fun. Sven Gengel, my girlfriend is a bit of an ableist, and I feel like she looks down on me because I have cerebral palsy. I love her, but it hurts. How should I approach this? Oh my God. If it hurts you, you should say something to her about it. I mean, if she's your girlfriend and you love her, then I think, you should tell her how you feel and be a little vulnerable to her and say, look, when you talk like that, it really, really hurts me. And could you please make an effort to not do that? If someone was hurting you physically, if every time someone got up to leave the room, they stomped on your foot, you would say, hey, could you maybe make an effort to not do that? And if someone hurts you emotionally, you have every right to say the same thing, John Brockman, when's your Steve and Stuffy horror short? Oh, it's for Halloween. I do the horror, the stuff, the horror movies during Halloween, or the horror themed episodes during Halloween. So it'll be around then. Malevolent Divinity, could Malcolm Reynolds captain a Federation starship? It depends on what show. Maybe. He could probably. He would probably be a decent captain on like a Deep Space Nine type of show, or maybe in the original series and they were more mavericky. I don't know if he would do well in Next Generation. The captains on Next Generation were either straight arrows or they were like, insubordinate and evil. Joe McClory, would you like to see a reboot of TNG Crew in movies if it meant no more OG Crew movies? I'm not eager to see it. I'm sure it'll happen at some point, but I'm not like eager to see it. Yes, Sven. I don't know. Maybe it is time to move on. Like I don't know. I'm like the worst person to ask for relationship advice. I try to tell you what I think and try to be sensitive, but I mean, if you think that she's just not, that she's not going to change, she's going to keep doing what she's doing that hurts you, even if you tell her about it, then maybe that is the only thing you can do. I mean, there's no reason to stay with someone who's going to disrespect you and hurt you, even if they're doing it inadvertently. Maybe she doesn't mean to hurt you, but that's what she's doing. And if you inform her about it and she's not willing to try and change, then I mean, there's no reason to stick around. You don't have to. Okay. One last thing from Dr. Yes. I'll pitch the hangout or the live stream, and then we'll wrap up. So Dr. Babylon says, Steve, I think the source of our disagreement on abortion is that you don't believe in fetal personhood. Yeah, you're probably right. I think I don't believe in fetal personhood. You're probably right. I think I think that is the source of our disagreement. I think my notion of personhood is very complex. We can talk about that later. Maybe we can talk about that on another hangout. And yes, okay. So, according as requested by my friends Christy Winters and Some Random Geek, on Some Random Geek's channel tomorrow at 11:30 Eastern, he and Christy will be doing a Jordan Peterson PragerU reaction video. So everybody watch that. If you want to see Christy and Some Random Geek do a reaction stream to that Jordan Peterson PragerU video that has been making the rounds lately, it'll be tomorrow at 11:30 Eastern on Some Random Geek's channel. So there you go. Check it out. And I am only too happy to plug it. And yeah, I've been told that NRA videos or NRA ads are running before my videos. I have no control over that. So we're going to wrap this up. Thanks to everyone as always for watching. As I always want to remind everybody, my Patreon page is right here, patreon.com/Steve Shives. I make my living off my YouTube videos, and the Patreon income is a huge part of that. So if you enjoy my videos, if you have fun watching these live streams, if you watch my other videos, Steve and Stuffy, Trek Actually, the video essays I put up on Wednesdays, Facepalm 5, and you get something out of them, and you get some enjoyment or something out of my work, and you can afford $1 a month, $5 a month, please consider helping me to continue making these videos by going to patreon.com/Steve Shives. And I also want to remind you that in addition to hosting YouTube stuff, I also am co-host of a couple of awesome podcasts on the Lemmy Listen Podcast Network. I am the co-host of the Late Seating Podcast, which is a movie review podcast where Jason Harding and myself review classic films, and we decide if they deserve whatever reputation they have, whether that reputation is good or bad. You can listen to our most recent review of The Sound of Music that is up right now. And I also am one of the 2 co-stars, along with Jason again, of the Ensign's Log podcast, which is a improv comedy podcast that is set aboard a Federation starship of some note during a 5-year mission that you may have heard about, where we portray a low-ranking officers. Jason is a communications officer. I am a security officer, and we're sort of Rosencrantz and Guildensterning our way through the adventures of this classic sci-fi series. And our new episode just went up today, our new episode of the Ensign's Log, and it's a big episode for us. It's a big episode story-wise, where a lot of things we've been building to sort of happen in this episode. And it came out really good. I listened to it earlier. It's really funny. I'm one of the people in the show telling you how funny the show is. So take that for what it's worth. But you can listen to the new Ensign's Log and all of the past Ensign's Logs and the most recent Late Seating and all of the old Late Seatings going back years now, and all of the other episodes of all of the awesome Lemmy Listen podcasts by going to lemmylistenpodcast.com. And I wish you would, because I love the Lemmy Listen podcasts. They're some of the favorite things that I do. And Jason, of course, also recently guest starred on an episode of Steve and Stuffy. He lent me the talent and the use of Shamilton Bunk, one of his Opinionville characters. Shamilton was the doctor on the video who I was talking to during last week's Steve and Stuffy video, and it was just wonderful of him to do that, and I appreciated it so much, and it was so funny, and he did such a great job, and he's just a tremendous talent and a great buddy of mine. So listen to the Lemmy Listen podcasts. Check out his channel, Opinionville, too, by the way, which is great. And that's it for the plugs. That's it for the rambling. That's it for the questions. Thank you all so much, as always, for watching, and I'll be back to do this again in 2 weeks. So there you go. Oh, and look, I just got a notification that I just picked up a new $1 patron. So yeah, thank you, new patron. I assume you pledged because I just was begging for it just now. So thank you very much. And yeah, thanks for everybody for watching, and I will see you next time.